Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunashumme, washmale. Ohai gonzaimus, guten morgen, hola, bonjour, privet, kaifa hal? Halishuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba. Buna, mucho gracias, Fabi, bhalli kare aya. Hoş geldin, and sayo khuyamora, chivato, chihal, jot, kalimera, khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV Born and Watching World this morning, alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your week with us with a lot of energy, with a lot of optimism, with a lot of positivity, and making sure that that you're going to be one of those people who will always make sure that I think that's something that is very crucial for all of us as well. But first things first, hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum, how are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, thank you so much Jazakallah khair for introducing me. So today happens to be 18th of November 2024, and it is also World's Day for the Prevention and Healing from the Child Sexual Abuse and Violence. United Nations has declared November 18 as the World Day to bring the global visibility to child sexual abuse. The day aims to increase the awareness of the actions government can take to prevent abuse and bring healing to survivors. According to World Health Organization, millions of children experience sexual violence every year. The goal is to bring hope and a healing to those suffering worldwide. I think it's very essential and crucial that we need to have the therapies or the approaches that are focused on the trauma-centric approach that is often built around the survivor-centric approaches, and this is essential because the trauma which a child carries in his childhood, in his or her childhood, will remain with that child till his old age, and it's important to address those unresolved issues. Exactly,
and in addition to this, I do believe, because Hajra, I think you pointed the conversation in the right direction, and while we are at it, I've seen a couple of people who unfortunately, even when now that they are grown up, still struggle with what has actually happened with them. We have seen a few celebrities come out and speak about it.
Absolutely.
And not just that, I think it's just a humble advice for all of those parents who are out there. So it starts from home. Make sure that that your kids do know the bad touch. May it be your chachu or mamu or uncle or papa or khalu or anybody.
Usually the perpetrators inside the house, right? We've seen in a lot of studies.
So may it be males or females of the family. I think it's the parents' obligation or duty to kind of make sure that your child is under surveillance 24/7. That's something very important.
Right.
But while we are at it, as you do know that that I actually happen to be an ambassador, and where I speak about antimicrobial resistance and what we really need to do about it. So World AMR Awareness Week is actually observed from 18th till 24th of November, aims to improve awareness and understanding of antimicrobial resistance and encourage best practices to reduce its spread. AMR occurs when bacteria, viruses, fungi and parasites become resistant to medicines, making infections harder to treat. The global campaign targets the public, healthcare professionals and policymakers to tackle the growing problem of resistance to antibiotics and other antimicrobial medicines. And why not? I think it's high time as well. Unfortunately, over here in Pakistan, it's a very common practice. You go to the doctor, they'll just give you antibiotics. You come back home, a 5-day course, 7-day course, you feel great. But imagine that if you come across a time where you've had so much of antibiotics that now they're not actually doing anything or any good to you, what will you do? That's the question which we need to ask everybody.
Right, and I think this is the virus that we created in our clinics and our laboratories, and this is something that we need to tackle on an individual level too, and especially the concept of the self-prescription comes into the question. How to deal with that. Self-medication is very much important when we want to address this particular situation. To further delve into this conversation, we are very glad that we have been joined by, once again, Dr. Muhammad Tariq. He happens to be the Microbes Literary Initiative. He's invested in that initiative. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for once again gracing us.
Walaikum salam, Hajra. Thank you.
So, Dr. Saab, let's unfold this conversation. Please tell us about this monster that we created in the clinics by the doctors through the self-medication. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for, I think, touching upon this very important topic. And I think it's not something that is new to Pakistan. It has been actually there for a very long time. And I think it's also good that we are talking about this today to make sure that our tomorrow is better for the generations to come. But the unfortunate part is that Pakistan's prevalence for hepatitis C is about 5%. It varies from 5 to 8%, and that 5% means that you are a population of about 241 million people. So 12 million people are suffering from hepatitis C actually. And hepatitis C is, which is a disease which is curable. It doesn't have any vaccine. And by virtue of its being in the body for a long time, it can actually consequently get into, liver cirrhosis, which is a very chronic disease that actually gets into a lot of morbidity and, low quality of, health and, performance. And most importantly, cancer of the liver actually.
Right.
So if you look at the larger situation of Pakistan, 20,000 people suffer from liver cancer every year, and 25,000 people die of diseases related to liver actually, and that is all about hepatitis C.
Absolutely.
Which is.
But so now let's develop our conversation into the health financing, and you are mentioning very staggering numbers. How many people fell victim to this, the monster, I would like to say, of the hepatitis C virus. Where does the health financing come into it, and what are your thoughts on it? How to develop it further?
I was very fortunate, honestly speaking, back in 2018 when I was asked, to develop the Pakistan PC1 for such a huge vertical problem. And we spoke about vertical, things, but I think, by virtue of our contribution, it is also always important that you focus on certain things actually. So in 2018, we started, having people from global level, and national level and provincial level.
Right.
And they were all experts from hepatitis C, hepatitis B, and hepatitis A and D, which are prevalent in Pakistan. And we found out, what will be the best, way to tackle this problem. And we started with, I still remember, one of my very good colleague from Lahore. He came to Islam. He has been working with WHO for many years, actually. And we sat down and we spoke about, that this PC1 is going to be very different PC1. And this PC1 will be not people actually sitting somewhere articulating and designing something, but right from the district level and facilities level where people actually end up showing hepatitis C. So Hajra, what we did was, we gathered all the information as to how supply chain works as a backbone for hepatitis C elimination in Pakistan. And Shahzad, we actually did a wonderful job in terms of giving a mathematical equation as to what would it require to help Pakistan eliminate if we start from a facility.
And what would it require?
And that was about $450 million.
And where do you think that money will be invested, number one? Number two, thank you, Dr. Saab, for reminding it, and it's because of the fact that I still remember that while we were talking about when you were here in your last ousting, you said, I do not believe in vertical solutions, rather it needs to be a comprehensive facility where you go in and you can get treatment for everything else. So how do you think that now, for this menace, you think that vertical will work, and how do you think that that one window solution is not a solution for everybody?
Absolutely. I think as an ideal state of public policy deliverance, for any matter, it has to be cross-cutting for everything. But when you speak about a problem which is humongous in its nature, you need to have a hammer to put it down actually. And for that matter, what we thought was that if you're going to look at the morbidity and mortality related to just one problem, hepatitis C, it is huge actually, and for that reason we need to make sure that people of Pakistan actually come out and they have a better quality of life. They don't suffer from cancer, they don't suffer from cirrhosis, and ultimately they have a good quality of life. They don't end up in different supply chains or different healthcare, right from their facility at Union Council to a BHU to a DHU and then to a tertiary care hospital. If you can detect that you are suffering from a problem, there's a treatment for 6 weeks and you are done. So that was something.
But if it goes undetected, obviously then there are repercussions as well. But while we're at it, sir, I'll bring you back to where you said $450 million, health financing. We've spoken about it. We started the show with it. Where do you think, or which areas do you think those $450 million needs to be invested to make sure that Pakistan will be hepatitis free? I mean, that's a bigger goal though.
Because you're focusing on supply chains and local production, so please go ahead.
I think it was very important for us to see what does it mean in terms of that health financing. And we took example from Egypt, for example, who have actually eliminated hepatitis C. And what we thought was, that this $450 million, if you dissect it, this is one of the equation that we can actually achieve our targets very quickly. And when I say that, that means this is a treatable problem. You detect, you test, and then you treat, and in 6 weeks, the patient is out of the disease actually. So from that angle, I think it was very important for us to see how the industrial production is going to adequately answer the rapid testing, for example. You have to have 12 million people screened, right?
Oh.
And of those 12
A lot of
million people, you have to definitely you're going to have 80, million people who
High
will be
prevalence, yeah. Mm.
who will be actually needing some kind of PCR testing confirmation,
Absolutely.
and those then again getting to the treatment actually. So it's a
Right.
it's something that I feel, honestly speaking, I have been working on a contraceptive supply chain in Pakistan, and we were importing all the medicine from outside, and then your CID helped us, but ultimately government of Pakistan actually took the responsibility and financed $153 million. And that is the example that I resonate in my mind, that if we can do that,
we can
why
do
can't we
this.
do this actually, right?
And Dr. Saab, so since your area of expertise is very interesting, and I think you're working on a very pertinent topics, and which is biosecurity, biosafety and disease intelligence, right? When we have all of these three area of expertise or arenas, where does this conversation leads us to when we talk about the hepatitis C elimination?
Yeah, I think
Do you think it has become more mutated, it has become more intelligent, that there is escaping a lot of, what do you call the tablets, right?
Yeah. Hajra, I feel very strongly the definition of, national health security has changed.
Okay.
National security has changed.
Absolutely.
And there's a big element of health security.
Absolutely.
If your people are not healthy,
Absolutely.
you can't do anything.
If people are not secure,
if
you're
your
not
soldiers
secure,
are not happy, if they're suffering from hepatitis C or B, you can't perform actually. So from that perspective, if your total population, 8% is suffering from hepatitis C, you just can't make the difference that a state would like to see its citizen going on.
Right,
so
right.
I think from our perspective, it is very important that we have intelligent systems who
Absolutely.
acquire information about detection, like rapid testing, acquisition of information, and then those people who require testing, for example PCR, like what we had on COVID. So you should have a confirmation test, and based on that confirmation, you put those patients into treatment actually,
Right, right.
and that completes the whole cycle of production, disease, detection,
Right.
and treatment actually, and then the morbidity and mortality
Right.
actually goes down actually.
And so where we are actually talking about detection as well, so there's, I mean, there are obviously too many feathers to your hat. Alhamdulillah, you're doing quite a lot.
Right.
May it be teaching PhD students or undergrads or, so I think the list goes on. But while we are at it and we are talking about, the detection, why don't we speak about the applied artificial intelligence and machine learning for healthcare to biotechnology and biosciences?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, Shahzad. I think it is such an important area that we need to delve into so much. And Pakistan has that opportunity to, by the time we had this COVID, I was asked by the NIH, Vice Journal, Ahmad, he said to me, Tariq, can you develop a system that actually looks after inventory management of all those good donations coming to Pakistan? And I said, wow, right. And that was the right answer to make sure, that everything coming from states or China or it has visibility. Yes. So once we had that visibility, that means that you can actually plan yourself accordingly. You can strategize where requires what actually.
Right.
And I think it went on to, when you talk about biosafety, biosecurity and biorisk management, that means your infectious diseases. Pakistan has notified 33, priority diseases, and out of those, 6 to 10 are the most important actually. I mean, you are hearing about tuberculosis, for example, hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is the most important, where you see if we can start producing indigenously the testing part, it can actually save a lot of money. And I'll just give you one example. When you test from outside, for example, and importing a rapid test in Pakistan, it costs you about $50.
Right.
And when you do it internally at home, it costs you just 50 rupees.
That's it.
So my, I think, message also is, I think we need to promote Pakistani industry.
Absolutely.
We need to go for indigenous production. We need to make sure Pakistan first, more than anything else. I mean, I'm sure, quality, WHO pre-qualification and all those things matter, but our procurement regulatory rules and regulations should allow the indigenous production with quality, that we make sure that we reach out more Pakistani as compared to
Thank you so much, sir, for saying that, because I think when we talk about the artificial intelligence, when we talk about the emerging technology, so there is a lot of doomerism involved in it, right? People say that we are doomed because machines are going to overpower us, and the future is going to be led by them, and it is going to be a very bleak sort of a future. But I think with artificial intelligence, with the advent of that, we can use it and exploit it to our benefit, right? And I think this is the best example, the hepatitis C, and how we can fight it. Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting that issue, and thank you so much for coming here and for shedding light that how we can develop that essential, skills and the talents to make sure that we can fight the menace of hepatitis C, because we're totally curable now.
And not just that, I think that there will always be this question as well, because when it comes down to using, homegrown, medications or the treatments, what happens is that there needs to be more reliability and confidence of the people onto whatever service is being available. Unfortunately for us, being an agrarian society, if our watermelons are being injected with red color or tomatoes are being painted red, I think there will be still a lot of question marks. But I think that's the way
forward. But I don't support that practice, but I think apart from that, our watermelons are still the best in the world, because if you go abroad and if you eat their fruits, you will definitely feel the difference, that how blessed we are and how we are ungrateful about all of this
and
production.
Because the reason that I spoke about it was that there's no such thing that you can actually inject watermelon with paint color or whatnot. So I think people really need to have more awareness. Unfortunately for Pakistan, if polio still exists, I think that we really need to work on these systems. We have some very competent people over here. We certainly can do it, and inshallah in days to come we will see Pakistan standing on its own feet as well. We're heading out towards a short break. When you come back, we have got a great news to share with you guys. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Welcome back, and we've all grown up. I'm talking about the millennials watching Lion King, and it evokes a lot of nostalgia because what was one of the best movies that Disney has ever produced. So Disney has unveiled the final trailer for Mufasa, the Lion King. Exciting, offering a heartfelt glimpse into the origins of one of the most beloved characters in the animation's history. The film takes us back to the early days of the Pride Rock, where the young Mufasa's journey to becoming the revered king unfolds. And that is something that I am really looking forward to it, because it has changed from the animation to like more real depiction of the animals, right? I don't know how you do that, but that's very interesting and exciting to take. But why don't we go and take a look at the trailer?
I'm excited. All for it. Let's go.
Time, I'll tell you a story. A story! So glad I brought some crickets.
Rafiki, keep going.
The story about a prince who would come to be known as Scar and an orphan named Mufasa. Two brothers who set off on a dangerous journey to find a new home and a new family.
Why are you following us?
I was hoping to find my pride.
My name is Mufasa.
I'm Sarabi.
My name is Taka. He's going to start a new kingdom. Come with us. You don't have anyone.
She does indeed have someone.
That's Zazu, my scout. Don't eat him.
You heard her. Do not eat me. Places to go, kingdoms to see.
Finally, food. If you take my life, you will never find where you are going. Taka, do not eat him. Wonderful. Another we're not supposed to eat.
You expect us to follow this hallucinating baboon? No offense.
We go together. Outsiders! This is not a drill.
There will be one Lion King.
We have to carry on. We owe that to each other.
We're trapped. What do we do?
Get ready to run!
I never signed up for this.
We have come to rule without mercy.
We will not bend to evil. We must fight together.
We are nearing destiny, Mufasa. And so, the earth must shake.
Stand down. I am highly trained and occasionally offended.
We go together.
Mufasa the Lion King. Obviously, I'm excited to take my daughters, for a good watch. I think it'll be wonderful. So, Mufasa the Lion King, ladies and gentlemen, will be in cinemas on the 20th of December. But why am I promoting them? But obviously, it's great content.
Right.
Please make sure that you take your kids to the cinemas. We all need to go to cinemas as well. But while we are at it, and we cannot go to cinemas. The only thing that we have for our entertainment is this cell phone that we have in our hand.
Yeah,
and
sadly.
what happens is that, most of the time, me and Hajra, we always speak about it. Okay, we spend so much time watching reels and, watching a lot of content. But there's this one lady who's actually taken the internet by a storm. Glamour, the 80s-something fashion icon, Margaret Kola, a grandma from rural Zambia, has taken the internet by storm with her playful fashion photographs, racking up 225,000 Instagram followers with bold sunglasses, oversized hats, and clashing patterns. Legendary Glamour is living her best life and proving that age is just a number. She's even inspired her granddaughter to style other grandmothers, spreading love and self-acceptance around the world. Wow.
I think this is the perfect example of what we call living the life to the fullest, right? And
Yeah.
that's a definitely wonderful manifestation of age is just a number. So when we talk about age is just a number or living the life to its fullest, I think there is another very interesting concept, especially with the millennials, because I do feel, Shahzad, that we millennials, we are more self-aware about ourselves as compared to our parents' generation, because, and especially when it comes to choosing our partners,
Yeah.
especially when we are going into relationships in terms of the marriages, because we want to understand the concept of what partnership entails in that marriage, right? And there is a new concept in the horizon, especially among the millennials, that is the premarital counseling. And what does that mean? Coaching or counseling rather, and how to develop those patterns of communication that can enhance the quality of your relationship, and how can we make sure that we set pertinent boundaries out there so that the relationship can be more thriving. And there's even a study conducted that the couples who go for the premarital counseling, they're more prone to live a more happier and healthier life, and the divorce rate has certainly come in
Only
those
if they
couples, right?
don't come out thinking that they're not fit for each other.
Right, right.
Only then.
So to talk about it, we are very glad that we have been joined by Deputy and the Clinical Director of the Khalil Center at United States of America. He happens to be Dr. Fahad Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fahad, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum salam. How are you two doing?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, first of all, for your time. First things first, why do you think that we need premarital counseling? Because it says pre. So why do we need it?
Yeah, what is the taboo?
Yeah. So I think one thing we all can agree here is that marriage is perhaps the most important decision we'll make in our life. And it is one decision that we're the least prepared for. And so, if you go into surgery and you have a surgeon who's performing surgery on you, you would hope that that person had gone through a lot of training before you put a blade into his hand and ask him to treat someone or to cut someone open. So preparation for important events in our life is also important. And for most of us, the way we prepare is by looking at our parents or other couples or other examples in our family, which sometimes are not ideal examples, but most of the time they might also be good examples. And so I think premarital counseling is a way to prepare ourselves for, a very important step in our life, which for those of us who are married, we know that it can be very difficult to navigate if you're not prepared for it.
Right, and Dr. Fahad, when we talk about the premarital counseling or coaching, and especially if we talk about Desi households, because we are all coming from South Asian communities, right? So we cannot discount the role of extended family or the immediate family or the in-laws in that the dynamics in that entire familial relationships. So when you talk about setting up the boundaries, how do you counsel about the young couples going about interacting with their in-laws? Because if you see the root causes of the divorce rates or any sort of, conflicts within the relationship, I think you cannot discount the factor of the in-laws or your immediate or the extended family in that entire discussion.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect. And one thing to keep in mind, like you mentioned, one of the most important factors that lead to divorce is actually in-laws as well, along with finances and trust and other issues. There's been a lot of studies done on this. But we have to recognize that although having extended family can be a good factor, it can be a protective factor for the marriage, it can be support for the marriage, especially when you have children. Having grandparents around, having connected family is good. But if you don't have the boundaries, if you don't have healthy boundaries, oftentimes in-laws can be a source of a lot of tension. And so part of the work is first recognizing that before I get married, how is my relationship with my family, my parents, my extended family? How is the female's relationship with her family? And then as you're going through the process of getting married, you begin to notice certain patterns. Like, is his mother coming in and dictating how the wedding is supposed to be? Is this person able to make his own decisions, or does he rely too much? There's a dependency that's happening with the family. And once you recognize those patterns, that's what we discuss within premarital counseling. Oftentimes, premarital counseling is happening weeks or maybe a month or two before they're getting married. So you begin to notice some of those patterns already, and that's where the training goes in. Because besides that, there's no way to know that. The person, unless you've been married before, you have no idea what that looks like and how to navigate it. So you have to have a little bit of taste of it. But recognizing those patterns, being able to draw those healthy boundaries is what helps people then go through these challenges.
Thank you so much for mentioning healthy boundaries as well. But while we're at it, for the first question that I asked you, you said that, you cannot expect a surgeon to go into a surgery if he was already not been trained or, given that opportunity to do that. So, because you're in the West, you're in the United States of America, a lot of people go through a lot of relationships before they actually end up marrying somebody. Don't you think that that actually needs to serve the purpose of a playground where you've learned how a healthier relationship needs to be? Or do you think it is essential for two people to come together, sit down and think, hey, you know what, we need to do this together? Because most of the time when we over in Pakistan decide with our spouses, we need to do this, the next thing, we're not doing that. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think we have to recognize that being in relationships before marriage isn't always ideal, right? Like we have, there's a reason why even in Islam we have this boundary. But even in America, if you look at the divorce rate, is pretty high. Some estimate it to be 50%. So living with someone without having a prior understanding and without commitment is different than when you live with someone with commitment. And when you have children and you know that this is a person that you are planning to spend the rest of your life with, that kind of mindset alone can scare people. It brings a lot of anxiety in people. And that brings a whole new, a wave of problems into the relationship. But being able to recognize that this is the person that I have to live with. We have personality differences. We grew up in different households. We might have differences in values, how we're going to raise our children, and then coming to terms with that differences. So the goal isn't that I'm right and you're wrong, and therefore you should follow me. Rather, we both have our own understanding of a certain problem and how we're going to approach it. And we have to have respect. We have to have empathy. We have to have love and care and concern, and wanting to sacrifice for the greater good, which might be for the family or for society.
Dr. Fahad, so I would like to touch a very important conversation, the undertones of which we are already having, and which is regarding the concept of the boundaries, right? So if you discuss this word or even term with your parents or your in-laws for that matter, right? So they might become so insecure that they forsake it for the support. Setting up boundaries means that we are not giving them enough support, right? Yeah. And I think setting up boundaries is the lexicon of a modern millennials, right? Or a modern generation. And our parents, their generation, they are not well versed with that. The concept or the healthier habits that I would like to say that comes with setting up the boundaries. How do you think we need to approach this conversation with our parents' generation, with our in-laws, so that our relationship should be more healthier, not full of resentment, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the key word here, what I found, is respect. I think elders demand respect and elders deserve respect. And in Islam too, we are asked to respect our parents. So when it comes to setting boundaries, oftentimes elders think the same way, and even millennials think that it means that we have to stand up and shout and put our foot down. No, it means with respect, with kindness, with reminders. You approach someone. If you have a difference of opinion, you validate them. You say, you know what, I can see where you're coming from. Elders, whenever they try to come in, for example, if a mother-in-law tells a daughter-in-law, this is how you should raise your child, right? There's a certain concern there. They're not doing it right, but the intention isn't wrong. They're not coming in with the intention that, oh, this is a bad person and I want to mistreat her. I want to destroy my son's relationship. Rather, it's like, I think I know something that she may not know. So if you validate that, you say, like, I understand you have a certain wisdom and the way you want to do things, and I really appreciate it, but I feel like this is how I want to do this. And sometimes it takes time. When you change the ways, it doesn't happen 180 degrees overnight. It might take a couple of weeks, couple of months, maybe even a couple of years. But with consistency, with persistency, with that structure, you can get to that point where then they can recognize what healthy boundaries are.
And With a lot of patience too as well. I think in addition to this, I would love to ask you this while we are at it, and that too from a man's or a boy's perspective, that when we get married over here in the South Asian culture, our mothers have looked after us really very well. Obviously sons in the past decade or two were always prioritized over women or girl child, unfortunately. But what happens is all of a sudden the son got married and now he's listening to his wife only. I think that the mothers actually do feel, hey, you know what, we've raised him, we did everything that we could. And then there's this element of insecurity, or probably I'm sorry that I'm saying about, or jealousy comes in. How do you think that any boy child needs to kind of sit down with their parents and tell them, hey, you know what, this is a newer role that I'm adopting to. I would want you guys to give me more space and be more understanding.
I think you touched on something that's very important. Oftentimes it's neglected. One of my clients, I remember, who was in a difficult marriage, said to me that it's like between rock and a hard place, because a man who's in a marriage has to maintain his relationship with his wife and also his relationship with his mother. And that place that we're in is a very difficult and challenging place. So part of the struggle is to even recognize that, like being able to find that support, trying to be open and honest with for example, your wife. Having that support from wife can be very helpful, but it doesn't mean that you have to let things be the way they were before. Your life, our lives change when we get married. It has to change. Like a lot of men, oftentimes they complain that, oh, I can't go out with my friends now because I'm married, or I don't have any time. That's how life is supposed to be. I have to come home and I have to help out with my family. I have to take care of the kids. You're supposed to do that. I have to spend more time with my mother. You have to do that, right? So part of being married is we take the responsibilities as men and recognize that we have these roles to play, and we have to do our best to maintain these roles. But that doesn't mean that just because someone isn't happy that we're being a bad son or a bad husband, for example.
All right, about Dr. Saab, which is why, to close this conversation, obviously, first of all, I really need to give you or pay you rich tribute, because the work that you do is really very serious. And at times, when we are having these conversations in our part of the world, we do smile and laugh out loud as well. But while we're at it, what is the core definition of a toxic relationship? This toxic term these days is being coined and is used so often.
And misused, yeah?
Yeah, and misused. Yeah. Hey, you being toxic. So if you're asking your wife, where are you going? That does not mean that we're being toxic. We just want to know that you're safe or whatnot. What is the true definition of being in a toxic relationship, may it be a boy or a girl?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there is no true definition, because the term toxic is very subjective. And Shahzad, you've been married, I've been married. We know for a fact that there comes a time in our marriage when relationship is very rocky, when you're not, at the peak, where you're not feeling that honeymoon phase, that initial feeling is gone. In that moment, when everyone goes through that, everyone feels that I'm not in a healthy relationship. Everyone feels that this person is being rude to me, whether you're a husband or a wife. You feel like you made a wrong decision. That is the time when you have to go through the difficulty. In American marriages, this happens too, that rock bottom phase. That if you go through that time with steadfastness, with patience, that's the learning phase. Learning doesn't happen in comfort. Learning happens in discomfort. So you go through the discomfort, you learn, and then you will come back strong, and your relationship will be much, much stronger. So a lot of times people start to think subjectively, I'm in an unhealthy relationship, I'm in a toxic relationship. It's a very subjective, oftentimes abused and misused term, when in fact, if you look at these relationships, when I look at them, when they come to me for counseling, I see their relationship as very normal.
Right. Dr. Fahad, one last question before I wrap up this segment, and that is related to, if you're one of the partner wants to go to the premarital counseling or coaching, whatever you call it, and the other is reluctant, how do you deal with this situation? Because if you go, and obviously it's not just limited for the couples who are engaged, right? I think you should always go for the premarital counseling when you are on the highest peak of your relationship, because that gives you a glimpse into how you deal with your coming or potential conflicts that might emerge. And we all know that relationships, especially in the longer term relationships, there might be a lot of conflicts that are going to come. So how do you deal with the resistance or the reluctance that is coming on your partner's part?
Yeah, so I think we have to recognize some people come to premarital in the very beginning phase when they've just met each other and they want to know, is this the right person for me? Are there differences too significant? Many people come when they're about to get married. I think the way what we need to do is we need to approach it as a society. In Chicago, for example, we have major imams and khatibs in the masjid who do not do nikah unless you go through premarital coaching. Khalil Center and other organizations have done the work to make sure we have the imams recognized, the parents recognized, the families recognized, the schools and universities. I'm doing a premarital coaching seminar at a very, very big university here because we want community at large to instill this idea that this is healthy for you. Like you mentioned, divorce rate decreases by, some studies say 17%, some say 31%. So if we can save our marriages, then why not have that approach? And when people are educated about it, they usually make the decision, because in premarital coaching, we don't go into personal problems. We touch upon it, but you don't need to go and expose yourself too much. And that's where people get a little bit scared. The idea is, let's educate ourselves so we can be prepared for the most important decisions of our life.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Fahad. It is such an interesting discussion, and for the days to come, we will tap into other potential aspects of this discussion. But once again, thank you so much for having this wonderful conversation. We are going on a short break, and after we come back, we have an interesting discussion lined up. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Earlier, we were certainly talking about premarital consultations and how important they are for everybody who's actually jumping into or probably getting married or in a relationship as well. But while we're at it, I think premarital and on the other hand, martial arts actually is something which kind of sounds synonymous. And not just that, I think while we are at it, I would love to kind of introduce this amazing gentleman who's done quite a lot for Pakistan. Imagine that he's the 14 times Guinness World Record holder in fitness and martial arts, first Pakistani to be inducted in US Martial Arts Hall of Fame, fourth Dan black belt in Taekwondo from Korea, certified exercise coach from ISSA USA. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Mr. Ahmad, Amin, Bodla. Hello, assalamu alaikum, Bodla. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. We certainly want to speak about Taekwondo as a sport in Pakistan. What do you have to say?
Definitely Taekwondo has prospered in Pakistan over the years, and in the last 3 years, Pakistan has hosted 3 international events. The first one was a World Championship, which was held in 2021, and in the following 2 years, 2 Asian Championships were also held in Pakistan. And I believe all the credit goes to the president of Pakistan Taekwondo Federation, Mr. Wasim Janjua, who has worked very hard since 2014. And now Pakistani athletes are winning medals in world championships. And Shahzad Khan from Pakistan, he has won a gold medal in the Asian Taekwondo Championship. In fact, Pakistan won the trophy in the Asian Taekwondo Championship this year. So, Alhamdulillah, the signs are very positive for Pakistan Taekwondo. And inshallah, in the future, we are hopeful that after Arshad Nadeem, the next Olympic medal will be brought by some Taekwondo athlete, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah, and we hope and pray the same. So, Ahmed, I would like to also tap into the conversation regarding the self-defense and where does the role of Taekwondo comes, right? Do you think this sports is flourishing in Pakistan, and especially when there are lots of conversation around gender security and having and instilling in our kids that, you know, they need to be more safer and have the control over themselves?
Okay, one thing we have to understand is that there are two sides of a martial art. One is the sports side, and one is the traditional side, which is mostly used for self-defense purposes. Taekwondo is very famous in Pakistan. Almost every school offers Taekwondo classes, but one thing we have to understand is that the dynamics of real life self-defense are different from sports combat. So Taekwondo can play a role in that, but coaches also need to understand the fundamentals of street combat in order to properly teach self-defense. I've taught it for many years, And I believe that if you have a foundation in some martial art like Taekwondo and Karate, then you can properly teach self-defense as well, provided that you learn those fundamentals.
Thank you so much, Bodla Sahab. And it's really interesting for me. And I'm sorry that, there's a smile on my face because when you said street format, I mean, obviously, over here in Pakistan, the most commonest street format is chaped, dhakka or mukka. I think people forget what martial arts was, what other combating sports are. Even if you are an athlete, I think it comes down to this. G, you want to add something, please?
Okay, like you said, that street in the street you cannot, you're not sure what is going to happen. So when we teach people self-defense, when we teach female self-defense, we need all we teach about is survival. We are not concerned about technical proficiency, whether you're doing a flying kick or not. All we are concerned about is surviving the situation. So
ladke उड़ रहे हैं. Yeah. Okay, while we are at it, thank you so much for saying that. Obviously, we do know because it's not really a sport, you're getting into a problem. How can we further uplift Taekwondo in Pakistan? How do you think this sport can become a lot more bigger than where it is?
okay, two things we need to address. One thing is that, like all the other sports, the Pakistani Taekwondo athletes are struggling financially. They do not have proper sponsorships, and most of them are with national departments and are being paid an average of 30,000 per month. So, which is very difficult for them to make ends meet. So, this is something which we need to address. We need to financially stabilize our athletes, not only in Taekwondo but all the other sportsmen, because you can only reach your true potential if you are financially stable. If you know that, okay, I can put all my time in my training, and then I can win more medals for Pakistan. So, this is something which we need to address. And secondly, in order for Taekwondo or any other sport other than cricket to flourish in Pakistan, we must make it common and famous in the general public. You know, whenever a Taekwondo national championship is held or a Karate national championship is held, all you see in the spectators are people from the martial arts community. The general public does not attend such events. So we need to make these games more common in the general public, and that is when, and if it becomes more famous in the general public, then the sponsors will definitely be more interested in investing in such games. So these two things I think we need to address for Taekwondo to flourish in Pakistan.
Right, and Ahmed, we've seen when you talk about, that how we need to put more effort into this sports and popularize it. But then again, the question arises is, obviously governments can support to an extent, but whenever you are talking about popularizing that sport, how do you think we can make it happen? Do you feel that it is a sport that should be popularized, especially among the kids, younger kids out there, because it has also the component of self-defense in it, right? So do you think this approach is the right one to flourish this sport in Pakistan?
Uh, I think Taekwondo is already quite popular among the children of Pakistan because schools are offering it as a recreational activity. That is one aspect of it. Definitely, it is being popularized in the children. But like you mentioned, every time whenever we talk about the demise of sports in Pakistan, people are quick to blame the government and they say that the state is not doing this. But if you see in the West and in Europe, if you see uh, the financial success of sports is a result of private public partnership. So we need to involve sponsors. We need to basically bring a cultural change. That is what is going to change the dynamics of sports in Pakistan. And definitely, if you make it more common in children, and in the future we will have more players coming up. And in fact,
Absolutely, and this is what we hope and pray, that in the days to come, this sport should be more popularized. And I think back, if I see, decade ago, I don't think so. It was a very flourishing sport, but now the tables have turned. Once again, thank you so much for talking about it. And with that, we are wrapping up our segment, and we are going under Hafiz. Until next time, it's a goodbye.
Good morning. Have a great week.